I look at this work as self-care, and it just helps you show up at a different level so you can have that deeper connection, be in a more of a heart space when you're working with your clients.
I love that. I love that. And so also, what is if someone listening, because I know that you yourself were like, "Oh my gosh, I don't really want to add this to the list of things that I have to do in my own business as a coach and things like that." But what what kind of what how if somebody really wanted to do this and actually add it to their coaching practice, what would be your recommendation as to how to go about doing that?
First of all, what I always say before you get trained or certified in anything, you have to experience it yourself. At least that's my guideline I go by. Like I have to experience it. I have to have a deep conviction of it before I would get trained in it to want to offer it to my client base, right?
Mm.
So I would say experience it first and see if it resonates with you, because you can't really show up and be 100% in conviction when you want to do it with your clients if you don't believe in it. So that would be my first piece of advice.
Mhm.
And then also, if you are wanting to get trained in it, there is look up Dr. Bradley Nelson. He offers online and person training. I prefer in person, but he offers both in person training and virtually. And so that's where I would start. But also know that, like, as a coach and consultant, you can't wear all the hats, right? And so if it's something you feel like it's important that you want to add as a complimentary service, you can always outsource, because I do that with my own coaching clients. I bring people into my community that are out of my scope, but I know it's going to add value to what I'm already teaching them. And so I'll bring them in and I will outsource that as a technical modality and just pay them, because I don't want to get trained in that area, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I think that's fascinating. So if you guys, if anybody listening is a coach and knows that this is something that might be helpful for your own clients and just getting results for them, please reach out to Teresa because I love that idea. I mean, we should all be collaborating, right? That's really the biggest benefit of becoming, getting in community with each other is helping each other out. So that's great. That's a great fact there. So also, what kind of, I know you've had a lot of stories from like a lot of success stories from your clients. I would love it if you share at least just one of those stories in terms of what was the before and what was the after.
As is pertaining to being a coach and a consultant, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
I
I
could tell you,
mean,
I could tell you so many stories, amazing stories.
well, you know what? Just give us whatever story is the most top of mind for you, regardless. But you know, just I love to see like what is the after effects of having worked with you.
I would say the overarching results with people that are entrepreneurs, business owners, coaches, consultants, is what comes out when they do this work with me is there's a deep rooted belief that they're not enough. They're not deserving of success because of some limiting belief that was implanted in them from their childhood. And the imposter syndrome, it comes up so much. Like they have to wait until they feel like they're perfect, they're ready to present, because they're not enough at where they're at to help other people, as it comes up. But I'll share one of my clients, Jonathan. He's a tax consultant. He owns his own firm. He worked with me for probably 9 months, and we did multiple sessions together. And he was at a block where he had a super successful year, and then his money income just stopped, and he was like, I know there's something that's off, that and I know it's connected to something to me personally. So he came to me and we started doing sessions together, and he's very, very open book, so I know he's okay with me sharing this. But what happened was, is we did, as we peeled back the layers, and I use this modality in so many different ways. So I like address people's root chakra, and I also use my yoga background to do certain poses to open up the root chakra. And if you're not familiar with chakras and what they mean, it means that your root chakra is where you hold a lot of your childhood beliefs, your core beliefs that are actually could be false beliefs, but that's where you start to create your adult reality around how you view yourself, is from that. And also from my body work background of over 20 years, A lot of people hold their trauma in their psoas, which is a deep low back muscle in their hips. So that's right around the root chakra, right? So it's all interconnected. And so we started doing these sessions to get to the cause of like, why is there a block in him receiving abundance? And it came down to he has had a lot of issues around relationship with his mom making him feel like he's not enough. And he struggled a lot with that and not being enough and being bullied in school. So we worked through a lot of childhood trauma. And he would leave the session. It's like a slow time release. Like he'd feel like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing, energized. Some people feel energized. And then he would get almost like clarity and downloads of what his next steps were to in his business because those blocks weren't there anymore. Like he's written a book. He's like, I have an idea for my next book. I'm going to build this now. Like he would be texting me and be like, now this is opened up. I have clarity around this. And it's like a slow time release. And it all like the heaviness and the layers are peeled back and you just have more clarity. And you're not just tunnel vision. You could see all the possibilities over here, all the possibilities over here, right? And it just started to open up so much for him. And now like his business is doing very well. So that's just one story.
I
I
love
could
that.
tell stories for days.
I bet you could. And actually, I've been to, some of your webinars where people are sharing their amazing stories. So that's incredible. And tell me too, like, so for your clients, what are, because I can understand that you're peeling back layers and you're saying that, okay, I've peeled back that layer, that's gone. But what, like, do you ever find people come back and they're like, that thing's still there? Or maybe said a different way, do you see this as a permanent solution once you've tackled that, subconscious belief?
I do see it come back sometimes, and there's a couple of reasons why. They're still in the environment that is causing them to have those daily stressors, right? So they're doing the internal cleansing per se, but they're still in those relationships that are toxic. They haven't had those clearing conversations with people in their lives to set healthy boundaries. So they're still drawn into whatever those people are telling them, those false beliefs, right? That because when there's so much I can say about this. Once you start to do this type of work, what happens is you show up in such a different way and that you almost have I've had people come to me like, what are you doing different? Are you dieting? Are you exercising different? Like it's just like a different sense about you. You show up and you start to have different ways of being. It's not doing, you're just being different. And when you have a different way of being, that has such a positive, different ripple effect on your relationships, everything around you that people we're used to you showing up in a certain way, you're disrupting that pattern now, right? You're not talking the same way, you're setting healthy boundaries and you're getting pushback because they're not used to people. They're not used to those ways of being with you because you've been such a way. But this work, I call it breaking patterns, right? So when you start to notice the patterns in your life that aren't serving you, you want to disrupt that. And the way to disrupt those patterns and break those habits is to disrupt the negative feedback loop in your brain, which is practices and tools that take you from sympathetic to parasympathetic state. And this is just one way that you can do that. So I'm kind of forgetting what your original question was.
Oh, just like the longevity of treatment. You're
Oh
definitely
yes.
talking through it. Yeah.
So if you're doing the external clearing, setting those healthy boundaries, having those clearing conversations with people, then it won't come back as much. Does that make sense? So, but it's not like a one and done, right? Like there's always triggers, there's always something that's gonna to bring that back up to the surface for you that can affect you in different ways. So and life always is happening, right? We all have stressful things that continue to happen. And you hit something from one angle and then something comes at you from a different angle. So you might not have to have as many sessions, but for me personally, I like to do when I feel like I'm in a funk or I'm not, my tools are, that's when I go to outside sources and I go to practitioners and I have those sessions done for myself. But yes, if you do the deep work and you really clear all of your spaces, then it's not going to come back as often, or it might be gone for good for one aspect of your life.
Yeah. So then what's the sort of mindset that you need going into that? Jackie says, do you teach how to clear the blockages on your own? Yeah, Jackie, we're getting to that. That's a very good question. But so what is sort of the mindset that one needs to have going into this practice? Or going into this treatment, and then maybe also on the other side of it. So, like, what do you need to believe or do or have to prepare for this? And then how
Mhm.
do you then take from that treatment how you're going to be practicing it, I guess? Like, what, like, do you understand my question? Like,
Well,
what's the
let me
before,
ask,
what's the
I
after?
understand the first part, but
Yeah.
maybe not so much the second part. So the first part is I would say just have an open mind. So I have people that come in that know they need to do something different, but they're pretty blocked off and they're really stuck on autopilot. So they've been going through the motions in their life for so long, but they know that something needs to be different. And they come in, I can feel the resistance, but they're willing to try. Their session is good, but not as powerful. The ones that come in, they're like, I am just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I am ready to like let it all go. Like let's go. Like let's see what comes up. And they're not afraid, and they're very connected to the sensations that are happening as we're going through the session. They have such a powerful session versus the ones that come in closed-minded, resistant, but they're willing to try. Like their foot's half in the water. They're not like all the way in, right? So that's the difference. But as like preparing for it, like knowing, like I say, observe your patterns. So what I mean by that is observe how you show up, your ways of being. Do you get anxiety around certain events, around certain relationships? Notice your patterns with your relationships, your habits, all of that, to see how, what areas of your life you're wanting to disrupt and kind of cleanse that area. Then that would give more feedback to the practitioner who would be doing the work for you. Like, I really struggle around anxiety around my business. This was one of my clients. She had anxiety since she was little, and she was trying to build her acupuncture practice. And she was noticing this anxiety was affecting her in so many different ways that she worked with me for over 6 months. But what we got down to is she grew up in a household with a father who was alcoholic. And she was told to suppress her emotions, her feelings. So she just bottled everything in, right? So she didn't learn to communicate how she felt. So we worked through lots of different ways. But once we were able to release the anxiety through the emotion code sessions, she is now showing up on social media. She's been able to show up and sending emails out. She is able to have conversations with people where she would get so nervous that she couldn't even have an open conversation to talk about what she does because she was struggled with anxiety so much. It changed how she interacted with her in-laws. It was affecting her relationship with her in-laws. So that just one area of anxiety opened up so much for her, and she's doing amazing now.
That's incredible. Yeah, and actually you answered the question that I was like really poorly asking, which is, kind of how do you then take from that and then keep it going, right? So like how do you make sure that what you've released isn't coming back? And it sounds like, it is literally through the practice of, you know, get like understanding what those external factors are and then clearing those and being very present to that versus
Mhm.
just assuming that this work is the only thing you need to do to make
Right.
sure that you've cleared it because it can come back if you're still triggered by those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I like to say, when I say recognize your patterns, so when I teach, I call it the Porter method. It is, I call them the 4 R's, and the 4 steps are recognize, release, realign, and reset. So we can't release what we need to release until we recognize what's not working for us, right? And so part of recognizing those patterns is noticing those emotions, because our emotions are messengers. So what is our body, what are we getting? Are we listening to those messages and we continue to have the same emotions come up? Are we just stuck on autopilot going through the motions, suppressing? So that's why I say part of noticing the patterns is our emotions are messengers. So what are the messages that we're getting, and are we listening?
I love
Yeah.
that. So good. So now I understand that you prepared something, speaking to Jackie's question earlier. I understand that you prepared something very special for us today so that we could actually practice some of this on our own. Do you want to
Yes.
start that and let and get everybody,
Sure. Yep.
understanding
So
that?
I call this the Porter cocktail. So this is a three-step process to help you release your stress and like a reset. So this is more of daily stressors, right? Not necessarily to release the deep rooted trauma. That's where you need to go to a practitioner for. So I'm going to take you on a little journey. Are you guys ready for this? We're going to go through it together, and we're going to go through it. This will take just a few minutes, but this is something that you can refer to and use anytime on your own. Like I said, to use to release those stressors and like a reset. So I want everybody to close your eyes. I know not everyone's on camera, so I can't see everybody, but go ahead, everybody close your eyes. And I want you to think of a time where you had a negative emotion, not maybe like a super heavy one, but maybe anxiety, maybe you're getting frustrated, irritated about something. And I want you to anchor in that experience, that emotion. And as you anchor in that, I want you to start to notice what shifts and changes in your body. Maybe start to feel tightness in your neck or your shoulders. Maybe start to feel like little butterflies or tightness, knots in your stomach. Maybe if you're starting to get nervous about something, you get sweaty palms. Like I said earlier, this is your body having a somatic response, a visceral response. So as you're anchoring in those sensations and that emotion, I want you to scan your body. And I want you to use 2 to 3 words to describe how you're feeling right now, since you've anchored in that negative emotion. Just 2 to 3 words. Once you've come up with those 2 to 3 words, I want you to remember those words. And now we're going to go through the 3-step process to release that negative emotion. So the first one is breath. You can keep your eyes closed, or if you want, you can open them. So what I want you to do is you're going to use just your breath to start to release what you're feeling, the sensation in your body. So when I do body work with my clients in emotion release sessions, there's a big difference in breath work that I teach. So most people, when they exhale like they're exhaling through a straw, which is contracting and constricting your body. So I want everyone to exhale like you're blowing through a straw. Now I want you to take a deep breath in and exhale with your jaw open like you're sighing. And I want you to notice the difference in the sensation of your body releasing. So I want you to do that a couple times. Again, you keep your eyes closed. You can open them if you like. So you're going to inhale through the nose, nice deep belly breath. Exhale with the mouth open, like you're sighing. As you're doing that, I want you to start to visualize the areas that you were starting to feel tightness in, or the knots in your stomach, to release and go away with that exhalation. So we're going to do 2 more deep breaths here. When you're inhaling, or visualize the oxygen coming into the body, kind of swirling around in those areas that are feeling tight. And then as you exhale, exhaling with the mouth open, jaw open, you're visualizing that tightness and tension releasing. And now I'm going to have you say a mantra with your breath. This is the second step in the Porter cocktail. Is you're going to bring your fingers together. This is just something tangible to focus on as you say mantra. So each time you bring your fingers together to the thumb, you're going to say, peace begins with me. So that's just a mantra I like to use. You can come up with your own mantra. The point of using your hands while you're saying the mantra is to have something tangible to focus on. Again, when you're starting to feel that anxiety or stress, maybe you're at work, you're about to do a presentation, you're about to have a clearing conversation, just to ground yourself, to be present, come back to using your breath. Now you're going to combine breath with bringing your fingers. So each time you bring your fingers together, you're going to take a deep breath and say the word of the mantra. So take a deep breath in, peace, middle finger and thumb together, begins ring finger and thumb together with, and then pinky finger and thumb together, me. You can say that mantra as many times as you want. Again, that's dropping down to the business of the mind. From reacting to responding, it drops you down into your body with your breath. And then the third step of the Porter cocktail is to ground in something you're grateful for. So I want you to close your eyes again. And I want you to think of something you're grateful for and think of why you're grateful for it. When you ground in the why, that deepens that gratitude. So we've all heard the power of gratitude, right? Having a gratitude practice. It's the highest vibration that we can have. So again, this is a quick way to change that negative to a positive when we're in something and we want to decompress and we want to change our vibration. So think of something you're grateful for and why. So like say for me, I'm saying I'm grateful for my health. Why am I grateful for my health? Because it allows me to be active. I get to do fun things with my kids, allows me to do my job. You really anchor in the why, just kind of deepens that gratitude, makes that vibration higher. So now I want you to keep your eyes closed. Now I want you to scan your body now that we've gone through those 3 steps of the Porter cocktail. And I want you to scan your body now to see how you're feeling, checking in with yourself. And as you're scanning yourself, I want you to use 2 to 3 words to describe how you're feeling now after going through that 3-step process. Good. Now I want you to open your eyes. And if Melissa, if we have time, can we have just maybe 1 or 2 people share what they were feeling before and after?
Absolutely, we've got time. Anyone want to share? You can totally unmute or raise your hand. Maybe that's an easier way of doing that. So you want to raise your hand and just share with us. Let's see.
Ooh, Jackie says, I felt defeated. Now I feel loved.
Oh, that's
Yay.
awesome. Looks like Sarah came off mute. Sarah, do you want to?
Sarah.
Great.
I did, yeah. That was beautiful. I thought back to a time, maybe about a year and a half ago when I was experiencing a lot of anxiety and some panic attacks as a result of a lot of overthinking that I was inflicting upon myself. And so as I was going through the steps, like I felt some of the physical sensations of that come back, which was a little bit scary. In fact, one of the words that came up for me to go through the next step was scared. But as I went through it, and as someone who also has already gone through breath work through different people as well, I eventually got to a place where I felt very loved and very safe. And it wasn't even like a single word that came up. It was like the words, I can do anything, came up in my head.
That's
So,
amazing.
so that was beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. I got goosebumps when you said that.
Me too. Me too. Dee Dee says she feels calm and grounded. Matt says he feels okay just being. I love that. Anyone else want to share? Well, I can tell you for me, I was feeling very almost like a lightheadedness, you know, and a little bit of an excitement, which is awesome. Suzanne says she's feeling calmer and more centered. It's amazing. So I
Yeah.
love that you shared that. I think that's an amazing practice that we can do daily, maybe even to start our day after we've done some of the other self-care that we do in the morning. It's certainly something that I think I'm going to start doing. Any other things? Okay, so what I want to actually do is shift just a little bit here before we close out the show. And I know that I know that you have a actual toolkit of sorts that you're going to share with people. But what sort of tools or books or other kind of recommendations would you give to us to kind of take this a bit further? Things that have helped you out in your practice.
Yeah. So when you say tools, and being an entrepreneur, there's all the software, the mechanism part, right? But what I'm going to share is something I learned from a coach I worked with probably 10 plus years ago. So this is something now I teach my coaching clients, is it's a practice, a daily journaling practice of a way to get off of autopilot and really ground in fulfilling your needs, right? And so this is a pattern I've seen working with clients for 23 years now, is people get stuck on autopilot for different reasons, right? We get into our profession, whether we like it or we don't. We get married, we have kids, and we're just in the go, 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 the hamster wheel busyness of life, right? And in something that people a lot, when I ask, how are you doing? I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. What does that even mean? I'm so busy, right? Like, to me, that has a negative tone to it, because I feel like when they say it, they're frazzled, they're stressed out, they're worn out, they're spread in several different directions. And so I started evaluating how I answered that. And I started to realize my life is really full. I have 3 kids, I run a business. My life is really full. And as I started answering that way, it like changed how I felt about my life, right? Because the way you respond and use your words are very powerful. So that didn't really answer the first question. I just feel like saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But this practice I learned from this coach was very empowering, and it helped me to get off of autopilot and helped me to start fulfilling my needs. It's 2 simple questions. How am I feeling? And what do I need? How many times as adults do we authentically ask ourselves? Or when people ask us, how are you doing? You're like, honestly, I'm doing really, it's been hard for me. And I had to journal this every day. I had to journal. I don't journal it every day because I'm in the practice of just checking in with myself. But this is something of why I teach my clients, journal about it every day until it's in part of your process. So how am I feeling? What do I need? And then when you answer, what do I need? It could be as simple for me. It was allowing myself during the day as an entrepreneur, if I'm feeling exhausted, to take a nap, and it's okay to take a nap. Or I just want to take myself out to lunch. So like super simple needs, but I wasn't allowing myself the time to do those little things. But all those needs that don't get met add up.
Mm.
And when I do this work with older people in their 50s and 60s, one that I started doing several sessions with, she was in her 60s, and she has RA, really bad, severe RA. And for decades, she did not fulfill her needs, to not going to the school she wanted to go to just doing art. She just wanted to do art. And yet other people were telling her to do different things. And she listened to them for so long. And now, as we're doing this deep work, it was so heartbreaking for her to like realize she stopped listening to herself. And she stopped honoring fulfilling those needs on such a level that it was actually causing her health problems. So this practice is so powerful, right? And then if it's a need that someone else can help you fill, it's a matter of us showing up and communicating to those people in our life what we need. And I found so often that we don't communicate those needs with people in our lives. We either assume that they know, right? Or we just don't communicate to them. And so like like one of my coaching clients, she's in her 60s. She worked with me. I mean, she's been a client of mine for over 10 years or more longer. But she went through my program with me, and this is the practice I taught her. And one of her needs was as simple as wanting, her and her husband were now retired. She just wanted to eat lunch with her husband without them being on their devices. Just 1 meal a day. That was something she was craving, that she wanted that conversation. She wanted that connection with her husband, right? And so she's getting so irritated with them, but she wasn't communicating that was important to her.
Mm.
So I was like, well, that's kind of not fair, because you're not communicating to your husband that that's important to you. So I was like, you need to have the conversation and ask, can we have 1 meal together a day where we're not on our devices and we just talk? And he's like, sure, that sounds simple. So what I mean, it's just like those little tiny things. And that's something I continue to work on, whether it's me communicating to my kids, hey, I have a full work week. I really need help with X, Y, and Z around the house, right? Or that's communicating to your partner. I really want to go. I love hiking. I really want to go hiking, but the kids have this. Can we play tag team? Like just getting creative on communicating your needs, not like being selfish and like have your partner take everything. Like really, if I do this, can you do this? Like I've done that since I've integrated this practice into my life. I I've gotten much better at saying, this is important to me. Is there any way we can work this around? Right. Especially when you have kids and you both work. It's being grounded and really listening to what your needs are and be able to fulfill those.
So awesome. Thank you so much, Teresa. I did want to just say real quick, we had a couple of comments in here that Dee Dee says that she loves her naps when she needs them. The work is to realize that she's honoring herself and not feeling guilty about it. And there's also, Jenny popped in the chat here, the link for what you want to give away today. Do you want to talk a little bit about that before we sign off?
Yeah. I realized the link to the Porter cocktail there's a glitch there, so I'll fix that.
Okay.
So what I'm giving you in here is the link to Emotion 2.0, the video, the YouTube video for the heart wall. It's super fascinating. It's an hour long. And several links to my blog where the interview with the nurse that talks about the live blood analysis. I've been on podcasts. I've been on TV talking about this work and how important it is. So I've shared some of the highlights in this document. I've also shared my contact information. And if you're wanting to learn more and explore how this works for you, you can have a link to my calendar. Or if you're just ready to experience a session, there's a link in there too to purchase a session. So that's what I have on the document.
Oh, amazing. So thank you, Teresa. Is there anything else you want to say in closing before we stop the live and get to the Q&A?
If anything is resonating with you, or there's like this nervous feeling of like, I need to explore, not necessarily like with me or this emotion code, but explore alternative healings, lean into that. When people have the nervous feeling, that's when sometimes it's uncomfortable. So then they just shut it off and they don't do anything about it. But that's where you start to do the same thing over and over. And you're not getting different results, right? Like Albert Einstein says, the definition of anxiety is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So when you have that little bug inside of you, this is why I've learned to listen to my body. This is what happens when you get off of autopilot and you really are in your body, right? Is listen to those messages your body is telling you. Lean into the curiosity. Even if it doesn't pan out, it might lead you to the next step, or it might lead you to this person or this book or this movie. And it's just a journey of learning all those little pieces that's going to help you on your journey and see what the next step is. So just lean into your curiosity.
I love it. Well, Teresa, thank you again. I can't thank you enough for coming onto the show and helping the audience understand how to release their negative emotions so they can truly serve their clients and create more impact in their lives and the lives of others. Definitely go check out Teresa. There's a link in the chat here. We will also post that on the live after the show. And for those of you in the room with us, you'll be able to stay on just for a few more minutes after we stop recording so you can ask your questions. And if you didn't register to get into the room today, let's fix that. For the upcoming episodes so you can get into the Cool Kids Club with us too. And of course, we'll put those in the comments after the show as well. So thanks again for coming. And
Thank
we're going to see
you.
you. Yes. And we're going to see you all on Monday, March 6th for our next episode where we're going to be giving you the menu for a lifetime of wellness with Kristen Cofield. So bye for now.